Next, please welcome Laura Modi, CEO of Bobby and one of Time's 2025 Women of the Year, along with Stacey Samuel, founder and executive producer of GTS Media, for a conversation on how to support working moms.
Hello, Laura Modi. I am so excited to be here with you.
I am so excited.
Here at Her Power with a powerful entrepreneur with purpose.
With purpose, here.
And that's why we're here to talk.
I am so honored to be in this room. I mean, honestly, the energy and all of the talks so far, I am so fired up.
And uplifted.
Uplifted.
And I think everyone here wants to hear from you as an entrepreneur, as someone with purpose. Based in DC, you're also in the rough and tumble of policy. So let me start with a little bit of it, right? I would say. So we're going to share with everyone how you have integrated policy into your entrepreneurial enterprise. So I'm going to take it back. 5 years ago, when COVID-19 was declared a pandemic, one of the many crises that arose was a shortage of baby formula. You came up with a solution in the creation of Bobby. Now, by the way, the third largest infant formula manufacturing company in the United States. That's a major disruption.
Thank you.
Here's my question for you. So let me start with the policy. You know, in January, we're here in New York. New York State became the first state in the nation to offer paid prenatal leave.
I mean,
let's give it up, finally, right? The only in the 50 states in the union.
Yeah.
But to that, with Bobby, your company policy has sort of set up a role modeling paradigm along the lines. Can you share what Bobby is providing its workforce?
You just used the word role modeling, and it is such a beautiful word. I mean, truly. And I'll start by saying I actually think the perspective that we have in the company from its early onset into the DNA of the business has been to role model injustices that we see out there, role model how we take action. The perspective and honor that we have, the privilege that we have to be in a position to be able to look at things that are broken and say, we have an opportunity to address it. So I mentioned it goes back into the company's DNA. I did not grow up dreaming of starting a powdered milk business. This was not on my agenda in life. I was a career woman in the tech space. And I went and I had my first daughter. And as soon as I had her, I would say in that moment I was born an activist. Everywhere I turned, there was something broken. There was an injustice. There was a support system that was meant to be in place that wasn't in place. And then, in many ways, I felt lied to by the world. And I'll bridge what you just said there to starting an infant formula company. One of those was that the same government who said, hey, Laura, you should go back to work immediately because we're not going to give you the paid leave to stay at home with your child, is also within the same government who said, oh, and by the way, you should breastfeed exclusively for the next 6 months.
Right.
That conflict was the activism and really the birth of Bobby and wanting to do something about it. So with all of that energy, what we decided was let's role model being a different infant formula company. Where most infant formula companies would want to see women go back to work immediately, we wanted to fight for paid federal leave. And we decided to role model it internally. So we rolled out a 12-month parental leave policy. It's a protective parental leave policy, 4 months fully paid, and we provide a support system throughout that 12 months.
I need to repeat that. You said 12 months.
Correct.
Of paid.
12 months of protective
leave.
And 4 months fully paid.
I believe only our neighbors to the north provide something similar.
Yes, I mean, I think the sad truth of it all is most countries provide adequate leave. And you see how that then contributes to everything. I mean, going back to the economy and the workplace and everything else. But rather than be frustrated with the lack of a system in place, we decided let's role model it internally. And not only that, we then open sourced the policy, including a playbook of how another company could adopt it, and it got over 2,000 downloads by major businesses, impacting over 2 million employees.
So you have created a playbook, an outline, a framework for other companies to be successful. They are for-profit organizations.
Correct.
So you're not hoarding this
We're
information.
not hoarding the information. Everyone should get it. And here's, I mean, the sad reality is, it's not rocket science. It's not rocket science. It's a commitment you got to make to be able to role model what your future could be for another woman's past. And we're doing that.
You know, this inevitably brings up something that we had been talking about. You mentioned coexisting as a parent in the workplace.
Yes.
So while there's the opportunity for mothers and parents to spend some time with their infants, one of the greatest challenges parents have when they do go back to work is childcare. And I think we hear this over and over again. You know, the rising cost of childcare is no longer a fringe social issue. And there are some estimates that over 50% of parents and families raising children go into debt just for childcare. Because you spend so much time lobbying and pushing policy to help working families and mothers, is the child tax credit enough, do you think?
Oh, we could spend the next hour talking about this. Ooh, okay, I get very fired up. I have 4 kids. I would say everything I put in is for their care. For me to be in this position to then feed 500,000 babies.
Right.
I see childcare as a vital organ for everything else. Without that vital organ being nurtured and fed and taken care of, nothing else works, including the economy. So there's always the debate, well, what does it contribute to? You have to believe in the importance of that being a vital organ for it all to work, is the first thing. And no, the child tax credit is not enough. We have to change the entire system. And let me just start with access first, not affordability, but just access. Go back many, many decades, a century ago, when we used to look at educators and teachers as the most profound career that one should be in, because they are growing and developing our next generation. Childcare is doing exactly the same. I would say goodbye to my husband before I say goodbye to my childcare. They are the most important thing in my life.
Yeah.
They are an extension of me as a mother to be able to do my job. So I say that because when we collectively all say we need more affordable childcare, I want to be careful that the caretakers don't see that as a way to not make this a career for them. They need to be nurtured. We need to be able to grow their salary and to be able to support them being the best they can be. So we need subsidies, we need better access, we need to see it as a career. That's one of the most important things out there. And then within companies need to change their culture to be able to support families. Have childcare on staff. Build it into your system. I would say even make it part of your everyday conversation. And it sounds so simple, but even within a culture, we allow mothers, parents, fathers to be able to step out in the middle of the workday. That cultural acceptance is not a norm to be able to coexist your family life with your career.
You know, the high cost of childcare isn't the only reality for families. Particularly right now, there's a lot of food insecurity. You are the CEO and co-founder of an organization that feeds infants. Can you talk a little bit about how your sense of purpose and mission has extended into another part of the DNA of your organization, how do you help feed families who right now are just very challenged? I read there's something called Bobby for Change. What is that?
On the back of the infant formula shortage, I know a lot of people here aren't in the US, but you've probably heard or it's seen that in 2022, America wasn't able to feed babies. And it was a big wake-up call to the lack of resiliency that we as a country had to be able to ensure a safe supply of infant formula, which is an essential good. And in that moment, we decided we should never be in this crisis again. So we created bobbyforchange.org. And Bobby for Change is the impact arm of our company to be able to take our profit hat off and our purpose hat on and say, what are we doing to fight for a more resilient country, affordability for big policies, and essentially fight for a better America?
Okay, I'm so glad you brought up policy, because part of strengthening our domestic supply chain, which clearly was the challenge midway through the pandemic, is that there's also got to be businesses that can also compete with the larger manufacturers. You have been behind a bill that I think is being reintroduced on the floor
Yesterday.
soon. Yesterday.
Yes.
Can you talk about the Prevent Infant Formula Shortage bill and how that's meant to address food security, insecurity, and helping small businesses actually be a part of the solution in feeding American families?
I believe there should be more Bobbies. There should be more choice for parents in how they feed their babies. And the fact that we live in a country where it's really owned by a duopoly. 2 companies feed 90% of babies. So when one of those companies has to close their facility doors or there's an issue, there's a hole. So we created this bill. And it was, my God, was it a learning of just lobbying and politics and trying to figure out how to make it all work.
Is it bipartisan, or did you find more support? I mean, we don't want to go down a rabbit hole of politics, but I mean, that is the reality right now. How do you push a bill? How does a bill get reintroduced without bipartisanship? How did you navigate that?
It was a lot of navigating over the last year. When we first introduced it a year ago, it didn't have bipartisan support. And this was under the previous administration. And I think a lot of it was related to just politics being politics and how polarized everything was. Fast forward to today, we have gotten bipartisan support. And we were able to get it reintroduced yesterday.
And your hope is for this bill to do what? To accomplish what?
The ultimate impact is that we will be able to see more manufacturers of infant formula who are raising the bar on how we feed our babies. And what it does is it gives a tax break. So if a new company, rewind 8 years ago when I started Bobby, I could come forward and say, you know what, I do want to do better for this industry and I will build new manufacturing. And the government has a fund to be able to support doing that. And I do believe, going back to politics, our democracy truly is only as strong as our ability to feed the next generation. And without making those investments, we're not building our democracy the right way.
I would agree. We don't have a whole lot of time left, but you know, I would be remiss not to point out the fact that what you're proposing, what you represent, and I think every person in this room represents, is representation.
Yes.
As a woman who's competing with big business, coming from tech, what would you say are some of the what is the North Star for Bobby and for you when you think about representation, diversity, and the benefits that brings to successful businesses like yours?
Ooh, deep question.
Oh yes, and you have 40 seconds.
I know, 40 seconds. I hope that in the future, it's not even a question. I mean, today we are all fighting for a seat at the table. We're fighting for the obvious. we're fighting for basic human rights as women. I mean, even outside of infant formula, I watch the fight every single day. And for my 2 daughters, I really hope that we can look back in the future, and when we're talking about some of these things, the seat at the table that they're having is one that they belong at. It's not even a question, and they are the representation we need.
Thank you, Laura Modi.
Thank you so much.
Where can people find your playbook, by the way?
It's on our website, hibobby.com, and yeah, I hope you are part of one of the downloads.
Thank you.
Thank you, thank you.
Appreciate it.